Hello, everybody. Welcome to the TCC Canada. Where are we? The TCC Canada Mentorship Community, presenting creative, meaningful relationships in business. Hosted by our friends over at TCC Canada and ESACS. I'm Jared Goldsmith. This is Sean Cochran, Elise Morency.
So what I should have asked in advance so that I had a good idea is I would like everybody to put in the chat what business they're in, if they're B2B, B2C, online or offline business, or a combination thereof, just so I have a general idea of who my audience is in relation to the sort of work that they do. So if you could throw that in the general chat, I'll have an idea and it will help me to, thank you, Jared. It'll help me get a good idea of what's going on. Thanks, Jeff. As I watch that come, I'm going to start to share my screen. Well, again, thanks everyone for coming to this event. And I'm actually quite pleased that Jared is here because Jared is a networking guru in the city. And I love talking to him about networking. And so I'm going to be asking him some questions directly. Sorry, Jared, you don't get your lunch. My name is Nancy Morris. I'm a business psychologist and recently went to a number of different networking events. And of course, they're different because we can't see each other in the three-dimensional anymore. And as I was watching in those events, what was going on, it struck me as to how different it is now networking, even though we've been doing it for a year. And there are ways within a networking space to still build and foster those really good business relationships. But I have a few questions for you as we get started, because I want us to get all on the same page about what we're really talking about, because we're going to be using some terms that are common, but people have different definitions for them. So it's okay, whatever definition you have for stuff, but let's try and get on the same page for this particular conversation. The other thing I'm going to ask you to do right now is, before I even get started, is I want you to think of one person that you will share this information with later today or tomorrow. Okay, so something that you hear today, something that you learn today, whether it's from me or anybody else in the room, it doesn't matter whether it's through this presentation or through networking or something that you hear that you think resonates for somebody else, and who that person might be. I'd like you to think of that person's name right now as we get started. And I'm going to swing back as to why that's important, although I'm sure you can probably figure that one out. So let's get on the same page. What is a business relationship? Anybody on stage can start tossing out ideas, or you can just put it in the chat, whichever way you want to do this. What is a business relationship in comparison to, say, a personal relationship or a friendship or something like that? What is a business relationship?
That's interesting. I think it's hard to differentiate the two, at least for myself. When I think of just a business relationship, I think of somebody I have done business with, or they have done business with me. But that removes the whole component of the personal, the personal side of the relationship.
It does. Yep, it does. You're right. Anyone else? I'm looking at the chat too.
I see it as the first thing that comes to mind for me is a trade for trade kind of relationship. Mm-hmm. Is people that you can benefit, either both sides, a mutual relationship when it comes to that.
Right. Mutual something.
Yeah.
Actually, Jeff Rock made a quote, trust plus support plus mutual respect. David Brown wrote, a trust relationship based on transactions. And Rob Campbell, at some point, there is a trade of currency for value.
Mm-hmm. So all of those would basically touch on exactly the right thing. A business relationship involves some kind of trade, some type of business content in one direction or both directions. And we usually talk a lot about trust in business relationships, though, of course, you don't have to have trust in order to have a business relationship. In order to have a good business relationship, you certainly need to have trust. But that's something that we're going to come back to later. But yeah, that is basically a business relationship, any relationship within which there is a trade of, as Rob said it, currency for value or trade to trade or something like that in a business context. Okay, so some sort of transaction in a business context. So what sort of types of business relationships are there? Because there's many.
If anybody has any thoughts, please mention them in the general chat, and then Nancy will moderate, or one of us can.
I'll have a look. External and internal, yeah. A little bit more detailed than that. What type of business relationships are there? Because we tend to have one little frame of reference in our head when we're thinking about networking and business relationships, or business relationships generally. So I want to pull this apart a little bit so that we can, mentor mentee. Yep. I want us to focus on certain types of relationships today. Solicitor client. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Supplier customer synergy. What's synergy, Rob? I don't know what you mean by that. Just the relationship? Or is that a mistype?
No, it's synergy is, I can have a relationship with somebody. I'm not going to sell to them. They're not going to buy from me, but they can refer me to people, but they're definitely one of my targets because there's value to trade there.
Okay.
In the form
All right.
of referrals.
Okay. Thank you, Rob. Thanks for clarifying.
I should mention, if anybody in attendance wants to come up on stage to ask their question, it is recorded, so your picture might be seen, but click raise hand, please, and then I'll send you an invite and you just click join with camera.
So thank you, Jared. There's a few different types of relationships, okay? So the obvious financial and legal, not everybody has those, but generally speaking in business, you need them. If you happen to have employees, most people, even solopreneurs, have some type of contractor. Maybe it's an IT person that comes in once every 3 months or whatever. I think David mentioned the idea of mentors and mentees. Also, you have peer relationships. I tend to put peers and mentors together because they very much are together. And the ones that I really want to focus on today are the peers and mentors, the referral sources, networking and building those referral sources, and of course, prospects and leads. So in other words, how you're getting your clients and customers. Now, the business relationship with clients or customers, if we have time, we can talk about that. But what we're actually talking about today is more around the networking, building these meaningful type relationships around networking. And in networking, this is usually where you find these groups of people. This is usually where your radar is on for finding and meeting new people that can support you in these areas. So I wanted to get us focused in on that, so we know that this is what we're talking about. So why do you build a network? Anyone? Why is it important to build a network? What are you getting out of it? It looks like an obvious question, but it's not always.
Or connections in services. Like if you know somebody who knows somebody, like you need a product or you need help with a service, right, and you don't know who to look for. If you've got networks and connections of people in either similar industries or who have used the same kinds of products, you get referrals through that, connections through there.
Okay. So yeah, that's all very important, as is everything else. The primary reason to build a network when you're in business is to be of service. Okay. So this is why you're building a network, so that you can be of service in some way, but it's also there when you need help, obviously. And one of the key things about a network, particularly when we're talking about peers and mentors, is that you have an opportunity to learn from others. And you'll notice I also put in there to keep an eye on competitors. You want to learn that part too. You want to see what the market is doing and see what others are doing. And obviously, we talk a lot about networking because we want to find clients and customers. But that's kind of way down at the bottom of the list, to be honest with you, because clients and customers do come. But if you're really focused on clients and customers when you're networking, that's actually getting in your way of being a very good networker. And I think Jared would agree with me on that, because what I know about Jared is he's not looking for clients and customers. He's looking for people to connect.
Yeah.
Either they might connect with him or, Jared, they might connect with you, or you might be able to connect them with somebody else, right? So you're looking for people to connect.
I mean, we have 5 or 6 hours to get into this, I hope. I mean, I have hundreds of videos on our channel talking about this. I love it. But yeah, I mean, the purpose is not throwing a business card and expecting a gig on the day of. That's why I think networking has a bad rap, just to sum it up quickly. It's about, like you said, being of service. When you become a resource for others, they're going to refer other people to you because you have the answers. You could help them.
Exactly. Yeah. And because when we're meeting people, only such a small percentage of them actually will ever be a client. Quite often what they become is peers, guides of some sort, a referral source, these other things that building this network is all about. So changing our mindset whenever we go into any kind of networking event, whether it's virtual or real, like 3-dimensional, keeping in mind that you want to be of service when you're there. You're not hunting for prey. You're trying to be of service. So that just came out of my mouth. It's pretty good. And one thing that I add in, of course, I come from this from a psychological perspective as well, is this notion of being able to use your networking opportunities to build your own confidence and esteem. Because a lot of people in business have a hard time in building, they don't feel confident. They don't have good, strong self-esteem. So being able to go into these networking events and then taking the actions that are appropriate to build your network so that you can be of service is going to build your confidence and esteem. Now, it's not a straight trail by any means. It will go up and down. But from a psychological point of view, I love thinking of, and I watch people at networking events because I am a psychologist, about how they are interacting with each other. And you can see people who are feeling confident and not. And in the olden days, when we used to go into 3-dimensional events, I would see one person, say in January, and they stuck to the wall basically. And then I'd see them again in the summer or in the fall, and they'd be right out there with their hand out, and part of that was because they kept doing it. They kept doing the networking. And one of the challenges that people are facing right now is they aren't networking. They don't feel that they can because there's no events to go to. When in actual fact, there's a myriad of opportunities to continue to network. It's a little bit different, but it's still networking, because when you're networking, you're of service. If you're networking to find clients, this one-dimensional stuff is, I'm sorry, it's crap. For finding clients, sorry. Can you bleep that one out? I might get worse, Elise, just so that you know. So, it's taking every opportunity to be of service makes you a networking god or goddess. Let's be real here. So I'm sorry. These things just come out from time to time. So you want to build a network to be of service and to get help when you need it. One of the things I noticed back in March, and I'll just share this, I wasn't planning on it, but back in March, when this city of Ottawa started to close down, and people were, it was a desperate time. People were quite agitated. They didn't go to their business coach, or they didn't go to their banker, or they didn't go to their accountant. They went to their community. They went to their network to get a sense of validation, to get reflection about what was going on, and to feel better. So having a strong network of people that you trust, using that word again, and that trust you, that's the first place you're going to go when you need some sort of support. And if everybody is in there with a mindset of service, I mean, it doesn't happen. Not everybody networks for service. But if everybody's thinking about service, then just imagine how strong that network is in times of need. We see it over and over again, and it ends up on the news because a strong network was very supportive of a group. But we have those little micro opportunities for that all the time by building a strong network, and that's what we're here to talk about today. So, how do you build a network? How do you build a network? So, on this note, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a networking break, and what I'm going to ask you guys to do is, at your table, answer that question. How do you go about networking? And I mean, yeah, Sean, I mean attend events, but I mean, what is the process that you use to network? How do you network? Do you just walk into a meeting? Do you haphazardly see something going on and say, oh yeah, cool, let's go there? What is it that you do? So what time is it now? So how about we take a 10-minute break to go back to the tables and talk about this question, and then we'll come back and fill this in. Plus, I'm going to give you some resources, and I'm going to give you some tips on building these flourishing and meaningful relationships going forward, including some actual details on how to network. Okay, so let's break for 10 minutes and go back into our networking. Okay, Jared.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I hope some of the discussion points were extremely useful and valuable.
But I wanted to come back to the how. And I know it's a bit of a tricky question, like, how do you network? Well, it's sort of like, well, I show up and I say hi. And it's like, no, that's not really what I'm talking about. That's not networking. So my forte is business psychology and business systems, and networking to be fruitful for everybody, to be something that helps to build mutual trust, because one of the things about trust is delivering on time, following through with your word, all these sorts of things, to make the most of the people that you meet. You need to have a system of some sort to network effectively. Now, the system can be really like inconsequential. Oops, sorry. There we go. Having some sort of system that supports you pre-event, during the event, and post-event. Okay, so let me ask you, for those of you, did you think about this event, which this is a learning event for you, but it had a networking component built in. But to be honest with you, any event that you go to is a networking event. Unless it's just your buddies and you're going for a beer, then it's a beer event. So it's, how many of you, and please answer in the chat, or you guys who are on stage with me here, prepared something before coming here? Was it a piece of paper that has the event name written down on it? Was it having a look at TCC and what they do? Even if you, like, maybe you know what they do, you probably know what they do, but having a look. What did you do pre-event? Anybody? Now, Elise and you guys, this is your event. So
we did a little bit of planning.
A little work.
Just a touch.
Anyone else? Lee, did you do anything? David, what did you do?
Oh, if everybody would like to say something, please click raise hand.
Raise your hand and come up on stage.
Yep.
Because sometimes the most important part, or not the most important, but a very important part about effective networking at events of any kind is what you do beforehand. Because first off, you want to get your head in the right space. I am going there to be of service. Other opportunities may come across in my path, but I am going there to be of service. I have absolutely no money in the bank, but I'm going there to be of service. Okay. So just getting your head in the right space is, either you're dialing in on Zoom or whatever, or you're driving to an event.
David,
how about you, David?
I'm sorry, Nancy. David's now on stage. He has a question.
I didn't have a question. I came to answer the question.
Yeah, he came to answer. So what did you do to prepare today, David?
Well, because I saw that it was different software, I worried about that. But even before that, I looked at the event itself and thought, ooh, networking, that's a really good topic. And came prepared to participate, because else it would be a waste of time. But then I was worried about, because I've played with some of this conferencing software, and some of it's really, really hard. And I'm not a young chicken anymore. I don't learn this stuff as fast as I used to. And it's very awkward when you're fighting the system, when you're really just trying to participate.
Understood. So did you check in and see what it was beforehand, or you just recognize there's a system here, I might need to show up a little bit early to make sure I'm figuring it out or something?
Well, I started 10 minutes ahead of time, but then my computer wasn't alive. And so by the time I got it up and running, I only had 3 minutes to check out the conferencing software, and it looked okay. So I came in just about a minute late.
Cool. Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Did anybody look up me? Did anyone look me up? Now, I know quite a few of you know who I am. So, but if you didn't, did you look me up? Because if you didn't, that is one of the things that you do before an event where there is a speaker or several speakers. Who are those speakers? What do they do? How could you benefit from what they might have to say? Who do you know that might be interested in meeting that person, for example? How could you relate to the speakers that are going to the event? Did anybody look up Jared if they don't know Jared? because Jared's name was on the invite. These are the sorts of things that I'm talking about with regard to pre-event. During the event, has anybody taken any notes of who else is on the call? And maybe something that somebody said that you thought was interesting, and you're right, okay, David Brown. Okay, I want to check him out later. I want to talk to him later. Taking a note of somebody's name. I was at an event the other day. I've been at several this week, and I have a page of about 6 names of people that I'm following up with that they said something really interesting, and I wanted to reach out to them about it. So if you don't have any names written down on a piece of paper yet, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. That is something to think about in terms of systems to improve. So pre-event, if you have names, look those people up. During the event, writing down information, particularly these days, because you can, and you don't want to stand at a networking event, a 3D networking event with a book. That makes people think you're a creep. So don't do that. But after that, like immediately after that event that's live, I would go to my car and I'd write stuff down. I'd take a business card. I'd write down on the back of it who that person was and why I was interested in them, or the date or something like that. Jared, you want to mention something?
Yeah, Nancy, that's an excellent point. How many times have you had a meeting with somebody? Let's say you connected with them on LinkedIn. Do you actually look at their LinkedIn profile? See where they went to high school? Like that could often lead to a start of a great conversation. Like, oh, I saw you went to West Mountain High School. I grew up not far from West Mountain, Montreal. Wow, you just never know. So when you attend an event, seeing who the speakers are, have you looked at a sponsor? They're the ones who make the events possible. Do some research so you have an idea on who the attendees and the speakers are, so you have something to talk about.
Yeah. These sorts of things, having pre, during, and post, are super important. Now, a lot of people focus on during the event and afterwards, but if you're going to really focus on something, well, all of it really, but do you have a system in place for follow-up? Now, this is usually where people fall down when it comes to networking, and it's one of the simplest things you can do. And I use the word simple quite intentionally, because if you have a follow-up, if you put a follow-up system in place that's not simple for you to use, you're not going to use it. So Jared, you have this amazing Excel spreadsheet that you, or whatever, that you just gave us an example of, where you can tell me where we met and when and how often we've seen each other pretty much, and basically how tall I am and all the rest of it. So you have this amazing system. My system is much simpler, but I have a system. I keep things in place. I know people who have super simple systems. It's almost like the old business card rack. You know,
actually, Nancy, your husband's Jim, your cat's Cosmo, your father-in-law is named Harold, and goes from there. Yeah.
Like, that's just like lurking. What is that? No, I'm kidding.
I learned all that stuff from the events we attended. And like you said, Nancy, often I would turn around and write something about that person, what we talked about on their business card. So spot on.
Yeah, no, it's a great thing to do. And you know, and it's so simple to do. I'm talking about sort of tips and tricks that aren't difficult, but we tend to leave them and not think about them. And also when I'm at an event, if I'm like live at an event, I'll write on the back of the card who I could hook that person up with. If I think, for example, I know somebody who's trying to organize a conference, maybe I'll put them in touch with Jared because he could do a conference like this for them or something like that. So I'll put Jared's name on the back, because inevitably the name is going to slip. You know, I'm not going to remember entirely. Elise, did you have something you wanted to say?
I just wanted to say that point about writing the name of who you can connect them with after talking to them is awesome. It feels so like it should be common sense to go, okay, just write that name down. But I never even thought of it. You know, that's, great point.
Sometimes what happens, Elise, and that's a great point, you think about it and then you don't write it down and then it's gone out of your head. Yeah. And one of the reasons that happens is because we have a lot of stuff going on up here, right, all the time. And so it's a very busy place. So we need to give ourselves these little signals by writing down somebody's name. And also, if the intention of going to the networking event is being of service, it makes it much easier to remember to take that step.
Right.
Because it's not about me, I'm trying to be of service to somebody else, right? So it's like, oh yeah, write that down. And it becomes much easier to do that. And especially with these sort of conferencey virtual things, Jared, you're a master at doing this too. You'll be typing away and nobody knows because
I'm looking for a video to talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm on events with you and we're chatting back and forth and stuff, and nobody knows that you're not, totally engaged in the conversation. I, on the other hand, I got my head down. I'm looking at my keyboard. So anyway.
Pointing at the screen.
Yeah. The other thing to remember too is to make networking part of your business system habit, you want to dedicate an hour a week. And it doesn't mean that you're going to events an hour a week. Maybe you are. Maybe you find lots of stuff, because Lord knows, even in Ottawa still, you could be at a networking event pretty much every day. There's something going on. Virtually, yes, but there's something going on. But dedicate 1 hour a week, even if that means you're looking through people's names, you're thinking about who do I know who would like to meet this person, and how can I introduce them to each other, and all that sort of stuff. So making this part of your business system habit every week is super important. I was reading some research the other day on the effectiveness of networking in particularly B2B business building, even now, and this was through 2020, and it showed by far in the research that they did that those people who maintain networking, going to networking events of some ilk, or going to events and turning it into a networking event for themselves, far exceeded the business growth and business potential than those people who were not doing that. So particularly in B2B, super important to continue your networking. So making it part of a weekly habit. Now you'll see the last 3 comments I've made: always be thinking of others, always be providing for others, and always offering value. Be always offering value to people. And Jared, and Elise, and you guys, when I popped back to your table, I was just sort of at the tail end of a conversation. And I think it was about, you were talking about telling stories or whatever, making something memorable. And so that something was memorable. And I can't remember exactly what you said, but because I caught the last half of a sentence.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jared.
Please go ahead.
We're just saying that networking doesn't always have to be a business conversation, and that it's more about making an impression on somebody in general that they'll remember you by, which will then trigger them in the future to go, oh yeah, that person does this. And then they remember your service that way.
Exactly. And either it's by doing it sort of that way, telling a story that people engage with, or providing value. When you give something to another person, they tend to remember who you are. And maybe you gave them a tip. Maybe you heard them talking about something and you recommended a book title, or somebody to introduce them to, or something like that. Always be looking for these opportunities. So this is how to network. Now I want to share with you, if I can get my screen to work here, just 1 second. There we go. Systems. I mentioned them before. I'll mention them again. You don't need to have a contact management system or a client relationship CRM type thing. If you do, that's great. But as I said before, I know people who run pretty good systems that are mostly paper and pen. I wrote down Excel spreadsheet. What is yours, Jared? Is it an Excel spreadsheet, or it is? So something like that can help. When I used to work in law, I used to use a diarization system. It's called like a diary. And so I would say, okay, I met Elise at such and such an event 2 weeks from now. I want to follow up with her. So I actually had a calendar, and Elise's name would have been on that. And I would follow up with her 2 weeks from now. So simple. That was so simple. It was a simple diary system. Follow-up is so important. And if you don't put it down, if you don't make time for it, that 1 hour a week I was talking about, and having some sort of way of following up with people, then you are just not, it's just not going to work for you. It's almost like don't bother going, because if you're meeting people for sure, but if there's nothing going on afterwards, if you've got no plan, no system, it's fun. You've just spent an hour, you've met some nice people, and great, good. And Jared, you wanted to say something?
It's so refreshing to hear someone else talk about this for a change, instead of just me spouting out, because I've been preaching these points for years, Nancy, and I don't read networking books. I never have. It's just always something I picked up. So often, I think people have the impression they walk out with 30 business cards at the end of, prior to COVID, and they say, oh, this person was good. Good contact. These 2 people, nah, they're not going to send me business. These 3, yeah. These 5, no. Yeah. I always thought that was very short-sighted. One of the reasons why I'm known in Ottawa is because I don't care who you are or what you are. I will follow up with you with a personalized email the day of or that evening after we met. I don't care who you are. You're in my database, and I met you, and I maybe will work business with you in the future. But so short listing the people, like cherry picking who you want to follow up with, has always been short-sighted when it comes to networking.
I believe that when people who are doing that generally have in their mind that it's, as you said, and you said it out loud, who is going to send me business? And that's usually what is in people's the front of their mind when they're networking, is who is going to send me business, rather than who can I serve. And I've met lots and lots of people over the years that will never send me business, and I still provide for them lots of value. And oh, look, there's Bob who I never worked with. He never hired me or whatever. Now sending me his 2 friends or 2 clients or 2 whatever to me for potential business. And that's not what I ever expected from Bob, but that's just what happened because I was of service to Bob. I was providing value. I was always there. He could contact me if he had a question. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, that's the way the universe works. And not that I'm any way airy-fairy about it, but it's sort of like what you put out comes back. And if you put out service, it does come back to you. It's not, you don't get to tell the universe when. The universe will send it back. Just trust that it will, and be going out there with a good heart, great intentions, and a mindset of service, and you'll be a networking god. Like, really, because so many people go to events of any kind with this, where can I get business? Who can I trip? It's like the, no offense to any lawyers on the line, what do they call them? Ambulance chasers? Like, it's the same sort of thing at networking events. It's only looking for people that you might be able to do business with. A couple of add-ons that I know people use. Yes, you want to personalize all of your contact with someone, but if you have something that you can automate, do it. And it's just sometimes touching base with people, just putting out something, as I say, like monthly latest trends, what I'm noticing in the world of business psychology or whatever. If people in my group are interested in that, whether I'm doing business with them or not, it doesn't matter, because one of the intentions of networking with people is keeping you front of mind. Maybe down the line, they'll never do work with you, but they know 2 or 3 people who will, blah, blah, blah. All that sort of stuff that we've already gone over several times. Another trick, run your own networking event. That's a great way to meet people. Hire Jared and run, but I'm pushing you today, aren't I, Jared? The run your own, and I've done it myself. I've had little pop-up things and like quiz nights and things like that turn into events, and they give people an opportunity to meet each other. I've had client events where I bring clients together and they get a chance to meet each other, and the clients love it. Believe me, clients love these opportunities. Even now, virtually, they love these opportunities. So that's great. Being mindful of the time and wanting to wrap up soon. A bonus little tip about building a network. You do not need to meet everybody in Ottawa in order to have a great, or wherever you are, in order to have a great network. In actual fact, you can probably build an amazing network that you can serve with your current group of contacts. And it's called the rule of 250 by 250. Most people know 250 people, all the way from the people that they know really, really well to acquaintances like, Frank, who runs the local Mac's convenience store. I know his name is Frank. So in there's 250 people. Most of us know 250. Definitely most of us know 150, but let's stick with the 250. And then each of those 250 people know another 250 people. So instead of being worried about networking and I've got to meet more people and I've got to meet more people, no, you probably have an entire 6-figure, 7-figure business in your current group of 250 somewhere. So remembering 250 by 250, 62,500 people in your first level of 6 degrees of separation. Anybody remember or know the statement 6 degrees of separation? Anybody
Kevin Bacon.
What's that?
It all comes back to Kevin Bacon.
Kevin Bacon, 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. Yeah, everybody goes back to Kevin Bacon. There actually used to be a game show that was called 6 Degrees, where the contestants, a little team of contestants had, I don't know, a week or something to find some random person somewhere else within 6 degrees of separation. And a little 6 degree separation sort of story for you. When I was living in the UK, one of my first things that I did for my work was working with expats seconded from companies into the United Kingdom from North America, because companies spent a lot of money moving people over there. So I was, there was a couple of people I wanted to get hold of them, and one of them was Richard Branson, and from Virgin Airlines, and for all sorts of different reasons. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was sort of saying to her, and I was new in business, and I was sort of saying to her, oh, it'd just be so great to have somebody like Richard Branson come and do this interview with me, blah, blah, blah. And she said, hang on a minute. And she came back with the phone number of his private secretary at his home office, because she actually used to work in music and was good friends with quite a number of people at Virgin Records. So he wasn't able to do the interview for all sorts of reasons, mainly because at that time I was a nobody. So it's like he didn't know me from dot. So, but she was a friend of mine, and I just opened up my mouth and said, oh, that'd just be so cool. And she's like, I'll be right back. And she had the phone number. So you don't know who you know. And in your 250 is probably a lot of that. So always remember that if you're feeling nervous or anxious about going to an event, work your own network as well. Okay. Also, just some resources for you, just some books and things that I know work really well. How to Win Friends and Influence People, great book no matter what. If you're needing to build up a little bit of confidence or be reminded of who you are and what you bring to the table in any kind of conversation that you're having, You're a Badass, or You Are a Badass, great book. And of course, I'm going to like a book like that. So that one's a good one. And content-based networking, I haven't personally read this. I know people who have and think it's amazing. And the guy who runs this, James, I can't pronounce that last name. He has a really good podcast on business-to-business growth. So you can look that one up. Those are good books. If I had to choose one of them, it would always be Dale Carnegie's book on how to win friends and influence people. Amazing content. But if you're looking for a way to manage the people that you meet, and this is about clients and customers, moving people along a pathway, this is the book to get, because in it is an entire prospect management system that is deliciously simple. You can do it on a piece of paper with some Postit notes. I use this system to get a lot of the corporate clients that I used to get, and I love it. And it's got really important messages in there when you are networking for the purposes of finding new clients. So I encourage you to get that one. If you're going to get it, you can get it at Amazon or wherever. So having a system that allows you, a system including some kind of management system of information, whether it's a spreadsheet or a CRM or a box of paper, whatever, so that you can have all of this information about people at hand, ready to use. I am known within my circles of being able to hook people up that, might be able to do business together. And I'm known for that because I know a lot of people, of which most of them will never do business with me. I just know how to connect them together. That is such a resource these days. I get calls like that or emails like that from my friends all the time, my associates all the time. Do you know someone who can X? And I usually do, but that's because I have a database of information, just like Jared does and just like other people on this call do. So if you don't have that, if you don't have a system of thinking and a system of action, pre-event, during the event, and after the event, make one. And if you need to put together some sort of database of names, numbers, cats' names, things like that, do that, because that will help you immensely when you're looking to build meaningful relationships through networking. Remembering, of course, that most of the networking that you do will be about meeting other people and finding new friends and new contacts. Have that expectation and that intention, you'll be amazing. You'll be, and your business will grow exponentially. It is, like I say, there's a high correlation between people who are effective at networking and successful businesses. And there's just a high correlation between the two, and there's got to be a reason for it. So anyway, I'm done. Any questions?
Yeah, there are a few questions in the question and answer section, so I'm just going to
Go
through that. So one of them was, what is your biggest piece of advice for finding networking opportunities during?
Great question. I would say social media. There's always events listed on social media. Facebook is, I see them all the time. I go in there. Meetup Ottawa, there's always events going on there. Search for things that mean something to you. But if it's business related, you pay attention to TCC, you pay attention to OBOT or Ottawa Board of Trade, you pay attention to Invest Ottawa. They're all doing stuff as well. Jared, you're probably better suited to answer this one.
Well, yeah, it depends where your market is. A lot of people think Facebook's great, but if most of your clients, let's say B2B, is on LinkedIn, make a post on LinkedIn. Hey, everybody, I'm looking for networking events in such and such a field, if that's applicable, and put it out there and see what happens. Like Nancy said, just use your network, leverage it, and then search other people who you know who attend networking events and follow them. Like, see where they're going. Ask them. A great question to ask at networking events. We used to do this. I used to promote this a lot. How did you hear about this event? What other events do you think would be applicable for me? And, you know, after talking to them for 4 minutes, they know what you're about initially. But use that on social media. Just making a post on Facebook, you might get, you know, mom and dad events through Meetup, not specific B2B networking events. Well, LinkedIn might be more applicable, or Twitter even.
Yep, Twitter as well. And I've noticed in Facebook going into other groups, like business-specific groups. So just can't think of one off the top of my head, but business-specific group, and they're often having events as well of some ilk. So for sure. Any other questions?
Well, I'm sorry. There's also a lot of great women's networking events.
Yep.
You know, out there. So yeah, it depends on what you're looking for.
Yep. Thank you, Jared.
Yes, we had another one. How can someone grow their business if we attend events focused to get clients?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So yeah, I think it's more so, so how someone can grow if they go to events specifically just looking to receive new clients. How can you grow a business?
With great difficulty. It's if your primary intention for going to a networking event is to get clients, it will be a bit of a struggle because the focus will be all wrong. And I don't know about you, but I can smell a hunter 100 miles away. And I know you can see people, they're scanning the room, pick that one, and then they go, and it's you can smell it. So it becomes more difficult. If you go to events of any kind, always go to be of service. And just have in your mind, you know, if I meet someone and I think that I would refer them to Jared or tell them about the stuff that TCC does, then great. You've had a great event. You've met people. And let me give you an idea of what you're talking about. I spoke at an event. Now, granted, I sort of had the stage, so it's people remembered me a little bit easier. A year and a half after that event, somebody contacted me to give me a business. And we had only spoken very briefly. I answered one of their questions at the event. And a year and a half later, they phoned me up and they had moved to a new business and they were looking for corporate training. So there you go. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. So I got a client, but as I said, the universe decided when that was going to be, and that was a year and a half later, but it was a very good gig. So, you know, it's don't expect right now all the time. I know times are tough, but if your intention when you go to an event is all about you, it's going to make it so much harder to grow your business.
If I may, it's always wise if you're able to think long-term. If you're thinking just for the hunter, I like the analogy, Nancy, but think, you know, how do you want to position yourself in a year from now? That you're setting the stage now to have starting these relationships and this trust factor with other people, that they might keep you in mind. And you'll find that if you approach network events rather than just throwing a business card and, like you said, oh, there's the two people I have to, yeah, it was nice chatting with you, bye, you know, and they ditch you because there's two people they want to talk to. Think long term.
Yep.
because you want to be in business in the future. So this is what you need to do.
Ideally, yeah. Thanks, Jared. Anything else?
Oh, I don't know if anybody else had any other questions. They can go ahead and either put in the chat or the question and answer, or if we want to pop them on stage. But that was all. Yeah.
Watching for better prey, David. Love it.
I think, you know, for the first little while after COVID caused shutdown, we all sort of, we went to a lot of events. I remember a lot of people were zoomed out, but it was not, I don't think too many people were thinking about business at that time. They were there to consume information, and that's fine. But now it's time to put that business hat back on, if not already pretty damn soon, and get out there and be of service, because you bring with you, whenever you go to an event, a perspective, a story, a piece of expertise, something that serves somebody else and something that somebody is waiting for you for. And that's the way I like to think about it. And being somebody who speaks at a lot of events myself, as you can tell, I just fly, because I have been told so many times, and I've spoken to tens of thousands of people over the years, that I've always had in my head, somebody in the audience needs to hear something I'm going to say. So if I censor myself too much, I won't send the message out there. And it's the same with networking. Show up as yourself. Be out there. If you know you need to work on building your confidence in group environment of speaking, well, do that. There's all sorts of ways to do that. All you have to do is Google search building self-confidence in business, and oh my God, you're going to get a bunch of information. And then do that and keep putting yourself out there, and it becomes much simpler. And as I said, you do some of these things, have a system, have a way of doing pre, during, and post event. Then, again, networking God if you do that, because you'll be head and shoulders above everybody else that's not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
That's me done.
Perfect. Well, before everybody jumps off, I just want to send another big thank you to everybody who joined, and Nancy for speaking, and Jared for helping us with this event. We can't put the stuff on by ourselves. It takes a team, a village. And if this is your first webinar networking session with us through TCC, we're having this monthly, so we'd love to have you back here again next month for a new topic, which we'll be posting in a couple of weeks. We'd like to see you on the mentorship platform. If you know somebody who would find this kind of stuff helpful, like I said, it's new topics every month, so we're really trying to target as many areas that could be beneficial for people. So thank you. And if I didn't get a chance to talk to you guys today, hopefully at the next one, or send a LinkedIn, send me an email, use all those networking skills. And thank you again for everybody for joining us. It's really, really nice to be able to just connect and talk to people on the same, with the same intention.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really nice.
And thanks again, TCC, for inviting me. And if anybody has a question they want to ask, Nancy at nancymorse.com is the best way to get a hold of me.
Nancy, perhaps you could share it in the chat feature so everybody has your email or website.
Idea.
So thanks so much, TCC Canada and Nancy. This is fantastic. I hope some of you got some good value out of this, and maybe will help make your networking endeavors less stressful and more successful. So at this time, we're going to, you like that, eh, Nancy? Nice.
Yes.
I've used it before, by the way. I'm not just coming off the top of my hat. So we're going to exit the presentation mode now. Well, we have the venue for another half an hour, so please keep networking and stay safe, everybody. All the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.